it is so imperative that you take your eyes off of the people, right? I mean, literally, you have to almost have a deaf ear to what the outside forces have to say. Because listen, Dr. Schwan, I don't know about you, but I spent years in wandering, right? And what I realized is, Tammy, why don't you stop and go back to the one who created you and ask him the question, who
Mhm.
am I? And I have not only asked that question once, I've asked that question many of times. God, who am I in you? Right? And once he reminds me of who I am, it's like a fact check. Right, I check myself and I readjust myself, and I'm like, okay, I get myself together and I continue on. But the reality of it is getting to a place, because if we don't know the one who created us, then it's going to be really hard for you to know who you are, because you got to know who DNA you have, right? And I think
Mhm.
that is why I respect people who are, who are not with their biological parents, and they get on this quest to go find their biological parent, right? And it's like, but you have a beautiful life. Why are you running? Why are you going to find your real mother, right? And it's like, because I
Mhm.
need to know who I am. There's something in me that needs to know, who am I? What did I come from, right? Because that has a whole lot to do with who I am and what I'm made of, right?
Mhm.
And so when I even in the natural, Dr. Shimon, when I look at my bloodline and I look at my lineage, right? I'm very clear, okay, this is the blood that's running through my veins, right? But here's the thing, if I get stuck with this is the blood that's running through my vein, then I'll begin to mimic even what my bloodline is doing. But
Mm.
when you get in Him, you understand that I've been washed in the blood, and that blood is no. I done had a transfusion, right? I
Ah,
done
come
had
on
quite a
here.
few transfusions,
A
right?
few of them.
Where he gets rid of my blood and he put his blood in me, and then I'm able to stand firmly in his blood and in who he is through
Mhm.
me, right? So
Oh yeah.
it's really, I can't stress it enough. And I share that with my mentors, my mentees a lot. I say to them, it's not in me, right? It's not in the world. It's not in the boss. It's not even in our leaders, right?
Mhm.
It
Mhm.
really is in Him. And that is where God wants us to be. He wants us to be so positioned and so postured that
Mhm.
every waking decision we have to make, we never lean to our own understanding, but in all of our ways acknowledge
Mhm.
Him. And what motivates us to acknowledge Him is when we know that we are Him. We are His image and His likeness, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
He's called us for purpose, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So yeah.
Yeah, but see, most of us, the struggle is that everybody else's opinion is ever changing. And so the more
Mhm.
we try to fit their mold, the more we try to fit their box, we're always chasing the fulfillment because it keeps changing. Because what they felt about you on Monday, they may not feel about you on Friday. What they felt about you on Friday, 2 weeks from now, they may not see it. And so we're forever chasing like a hamster wheel when we're trying to submit to what they say is enough. But it's like you said, when you have that transfusion, it literally takes out everything. When you have a transfusion, it takes out everything that's already
Everything.
there, runs it through a machine, and inputs
Clean it
what
up.
belongs, cleans it up, puts back in what belongs. So now I
Yeah.
can purge myself of the thinking that I'm not enough. I can purge myself of
Yeah.
the cloudy, chaotic thinking. I can purge myself of the toxic view of what I thought life was. Okay, because here's the thing: many of us, unless we submit to Him, really don't know life. Many
Really
of
don't
us,
know life.
we really don't know life because we've
Really
learned
don't
how
know
to
life.
function. We've learned how to be, but we have not learned how to become. So we've learned how to be
Yes.
in the moment, but we haven't learned how to
Hmm.
become who we're supposed to be. And so that's why many of us, we have attitudes with other people because we're like, they know who they are. It's not that they know who they know who He said they are. So
Yes.
it's not that I
Yes.
wanted to be here. It's the
Hmm.
truth of the matter is I didn't want to be Dr. Vaughn. Full transparency.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want the weight of
Mm-hmm.
what I carry. I didn't want the
Mm-hmm.
responsibility. I really wanted to direct the choir until I was up to the senior level. I
And I
did.
wanted to be a soloist. Isn't that
See, that's
something?
listen. That's all I wanted to do. I wanted to direct the choir, do praise and worship until I got to the senior level when I was on the senior choir of the church, and then I was good. That's all I wanted to do. But that wasn't what he wanted me to do. But my journey between what I wanted and what he wanted was was a little interesting because I was always trying to fit into their mold. And so I love how you said, I had a transfusion. But how many transfusions I gotta have? Sometimes I can't. I stop counting.
You got to stop counting, and that's when you're yielded. When you're yielded with God, you will stop counting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's that place of surrenderance. God, do
Mm-hmm.
what you got to do with me, but I want you to conform me where I am looking more and more like you every day. If you got to give
Mm-hmm.
me a transfusion every day, do what you have to do. But God, in all times, I want to stand in the truth of who you say I am.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because we can spend years, Dr. Shavana, standing in the truth of somebody that we are not, right? How do I know? Because I've done it. I've
Done it.
done it. I've done it, you know? And that's why I'm very much transparent, with people to say, listen, it's a journey.
Mm-hmm.
None of these people you see on social media, none of these people you see on TV, they did not wake up like this. I know that's the little slogan, but they didn't wake up like this. We had to go through a process to get where we're going. But here's the thing, if we don't respect the process, then we'll
That's
get
it.
out of the process and we'll do things leaning to our own understanding. And that's when things become a mess. That's when we become hurt. That's when we become bitter. That's when we become angry. We feel like we've been used and we've been mishandled. But the truth of the matter is, you got up too early and you started doing it your way, and you didn't
Woo!
trust God in the process for him to do it his way. Only he knows what it takes to perfect the character of a man.
Go
Only
here.
God knows, right? Only he knows what it takes to mature us to the place where we're able to handle every season, because every season requires a different version of us, right? And we don't know what that season is coming with, but he knows, right? So when you stay in it, he perfects us to the point that we're able to weather those storms, because
Mm-hmm.
storms come with it too, right? And
Yeah,
we're able to stand in those places that he has called us to. But make sure he called you to it, right? Make sure
that
he
part.
called you to it, because if he didn't call you to it and you don't have the grace for it, it'll overtake you. Let me tell you, it will overtake you.
Listen, listen. Those of y'all
Yeah.
that are watching, somebody needs to put in the comment section. I can't get up too fast. Somebody
Don't
just
get up
needs to
too
declare it
fast.
to yourself. Don't get up too fast. Put your
Don't get
name
up too
on it and
fast.
say, don't get up too fast. Because here's
Hmm.
the thing: many of us are walking around undone.
I'm
You know
done.
how when you make a cake and it look pretty on the outside, and I mean it's golden brown all in the inside, and you go to cut that cake and you pull that knife out and it's all doughy and creamy in the inside.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
because number one, come on here, you cooked it on the wrong temperature,
Wrong
and number
temperature.
two, you took it out too
Took it
fast.
out too early.
And some of
Took
us
it
are
out too early.
literally, we got this image, we're
Hmm.
dressing it, we're talking it, we're
Yeah.
connecting with the right people, we're building communities and everything. But in the inside, we're undone. We are
Undone.
literally
Undone.
undone. And you can't, oh God, you can't get up too fast. You can't move too fast because some of us literally don't understand. It's the journey that makes us.
It's
It's
a
not
journey that
it's
makes
the
us.
journey that makes me. And some of us have become ashamed of our journey because all of our
Mhm.
journeys are different. All
Mhm.
of our journeys are demonstrated according to our end result, according to
Mhm.
our designated end. So
Yeah.
all of our journeys are going to be different. So I can't get upset because your journey is going a different way. And I'm like,
Mhm.
Dad, God, why my journey can't be like Pastor Tammy? Why can't I get to where I'm supposed to be? Look, she already where I'm trying to go. God is saying it's some stuff in you that's undone.
Undone.
It's some
Some
stuff in you
stuff in
that's
you that's
undone.
undone.
Listen, so I got to. So Pastor Tammy, when we're talking about embracing this whole journey, How do I embrace my journey of being enough in the season that God has me in?
Dr. Shavana, I have one word for that, and that's surrender.
Yeah.
You gotta surrender, right? You gotta trust God. You gotta get to the point in your life where it doesn't matter what I feel. I think that we, especially, I don't like to attack this generation because I love this up and coming generation. And I think that many of us, we don't like to wait.
Mm,
We don't want to wait, right?
mm,
But I promise you, it's in the waiting that fortifies you, right? That's where the seasoning get. Because if you fix a pot of soup, it's really good after you finish cooking it. But if you let it cook, sit a while, and you allow all the essence to get in it, or you cook or you warm it up the next day, it's
mm,
another kind of savory. It's okay to wait. It's
mm.
okay to wait. Your timing isn't my timing. But when my time does come, because I'm in the will of God, it makes a whole nother difference. We got to get
Ooh.
comfortable. I used to say I dance to the beat of my own drum, right? But I don't even dance to the beat of my drum. I dance to the beat of heaven's drum. What God has me to dance
Mm-hmm.
to. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so when you get to that place of totally surrendering, just totally yielding, God, what do you want from me? And
Mm-hmm.
here's the thing about the journey. There are times on the journey where it's going to get very uncomfortable. I mean, it's going to get very uncomfortable. Whether it is because some that were on the journey with me can't go any further, whether it is I'm at a stop sign on the journey and I got all these people bypassing me, whether it is, even getting a setback in the journey, because
Mm-hmm.
I don't subscribe to, well, if she go backwards, that ain't God. I don't subscribe to that, because I believe I've lived through seasons where I had to do it over again.
Mm-hmm.
I had to
Me
do it
too.
over again,
Yeah.
right? And I promise you, he took me the same route, and the scenery was the same, but I saw it different.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
saw it different, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there's plenty of times that we go on journeys and it's like, I didn't see that. I come past this all the time and I
Mm-hmm.
never noticed that door over there, right?
Yep.
So if we're not getting everything that God needs for us to get on the journey, sometimes we'll even have to go back. But my point that I'm making is we got to be comfortable in God's timing.
Mm-hmm.
We got to be comfortable in God's timing. And that's where that surrendering comes. When that surrenderance comes, it's
Yes.
almost like you're numb, but you're not, because you feel that stuff. I'm telling you, you
Mm-hmm.
feel it, right? I'm not trying to act like it's like it's a bed of roses and it's like, oh, every day is a happy day because I've surrendered. Oh, I've surrendered. No, no, I ain't here to play that game, because somebody needs to know the
Yes.
importance of waiting and
Mm-hmm.
trusting God for his timing.
Mm-hmm.
Because the thing about God, he's intentional. And what I've learned is I've learned a lot about God's alignment,
Mm-hmm.
because everything is just so perfect in his doing, because while I'm over here, he's perfecting something over here, so that by the time I go around and around and get here, this will be ready for my arrival, right? This
Yes.
right here will be in a place where it can agree and we can walk together, or we
Mm-hmm.
can build together, right?
Yes.
And so it's important that we wait. Just wait on the Lord and be of good courage.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm gonna say to that.
Yeah.
And
Listen.
rest in the place of surrenderance.
Yes.
It's
But see,
important.
many of you are in the comment sections. Listen, she said two words that I want you to grab a hold and take with you. I'm in a season called intentional alignment.
Intentional
I'm
alignment.
in a
Hmm.
season of intentional alignment. You can type in the comment section or whatever. I am in the season of intentional alignment. Why do you say that, Dr. Vaughn? Because here's the dynamic to waiting and alignment. The ultimate master creator of my entire journey knows more about my journey than I do. So if I intentionally align with his direction, then I don't have to repeat certain things. If I intentionally align with his, then I actually will go the right direction. Because here's the thing, like Pastor Tammy said, sometimes I've had to do some repeats. I raised both my hands. I didn't had to do some repeats in some seasons. Why? Because I didn't stop at the stop sign. Why?
Yes.
Because when I got
Yeah.
in the traffic jam, I wanted to take a side road when he said sit in the traffic jam until I get you through. When I got into some things, I wanted to take some shortcuts, and he was like, no, it's the longer journey that is actually going to develop what I need in you that you're going to need for the end. And many of us don't want to go through the longer journey because it seemed like we're watching everybody else drive by. But the fact of the matter is, I would rather sit in the longer journey and get to the end result and not have to repeat than to try to shortcut with you. And then I end up back in the same season doing
Same
this
season.
again. And
Same
then we want to
season.
say, oh, the devil is attack. No, I'm the
No.
one that consciously
Mm-mm.
decided that I was going to take the shortcut. Because
Yes.
here's the thing, full transparency. 2 years ago, I remember connecting to a certain lady, a certain individual, because she promised all this thing. And we were building, she was teaching me or whatever. I thought that we were going to get somewhere, invested some things I should have never invested, only for God to take me back to ground zero
Back
and
to
say,
ground
now,
zero.
now you're gonna build it my way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you thought you was gonna
Mm-hmm.
build it that way. You thought you was
Yeah.
gonna make it that way. You thought you were gonna soar that way. Now that you done yet? Now we're gonna build it my way.
My
And I
way.
had to still come back to
Oh
the word
God.
Pastor Tammy said. I had to come back to a full surrender.
Mm-hmm.
I had to come back and reactivate my yes. I had to come back and actually surrender again.
Again.
And so, to somebody that's out there, like, and everybody's making it seem like they're perfect. No, I've had to surrender
Mm-hmm.
again. And I'm not ashamed to say
Again.
I had to. So, if you're listening and you got to surrender again, make today the day that you decide to surrender again. Make today the day that you decide to wait again. Make today the day that you decide to intentionally align with God's will again. I don't care how many, I tell my mentees all the time, I don't care how many times we got to come back to the drawing board. As
Mm-hmm.
long as you're still alive and you're willing to come back and surrender again,
Yes.
we're coming back to the altar.
Yes.
We're coming back. We're coming back
Mm-hmm.
because the simple fact, as long as I got breath in my body, I got another chance to
Yeah.
come back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And guess
Yeah.
what? To some of y'all that's wondering, and sometimes the greatest surrender to God, when you give God your everything, it is true that He will sometime redeem the time
Yes.
that you lost and bring you back to what you were so fearful you were gonna miss it. And when you actually really surrender for real, and He really
Mm-hmm.
bring you back, you was like, God, what did I miss?
Mm-hmm. What did I miss? I
Listen.
love that you brought that out. That when you get in a place of surrendering, in a place of obedience with God, that He will redeem the time. I am living in a season now of redeemed time. And the way that you know that God is redeeming the time is it happens fast. Stuff just start flowing. It's almost like something was held up until it was waiting for you to get to the place
Mhm.
that you needed to be, and then God just releases it. I mean, literally, I'm living in that season now where it's almost, I find myself sometimes, Dr. Vaughn, saying, this is a lot. This is a lot. And I have some covenant sisters who will say, I mean, this is too much. How are you going to juggle all this? And I say, I don't know. But I'm gonna keep juggling until I perfect it. I'm not letting anything
Mhm.
else drop in the ground. I'm not letting anything else drop, right? This time I'm full speed ahead. And my confidence today is that I'm in his will. That's
Mm.
the difference from anything. I am in his will, and I'm watching him redeem the time. I'm watching him release to me things that I literally forgot about,
Mm.
right? I'm watching him release to me things that I have to stop and say, are you sure? Like, are you sure? And God is like, yeah, because while you were in the process, I
Mhm.
prepared you for that, right?
Mhm.
And then he'll remind me, remember this and remember that, and here's the thing. It's nothing brings me more awe of God than walking through a season and then turn around and see myself standing in another season, but using the fruit from that past season that I despise. There's the season that I hated. Like, why am I here? Like, how long am I going to be here? Like, when are you going to do it? It's like nothing is more beautiful to me than when
Mhm,
God does that. And those are the things that make me, you know, confident that God
mhm.
knows what he's doing with Tammy's life. He
Oh
knows
yeah.
what he's
Oh yeah.
doing.
Oh
He
yeah.
knows what he's doing.
But that's
Yeah.
where that whole piece of somebody said you're talking about authenticity and boldness. Yeah, I'm talking about authenticity and boldness, not in me.
Not
I
in me.
I am my authenticity comes from him, but my boldness comes from my confidence in him.
In
It's
him.
the confidence that he
Mhm.
now said, now that you've submitted to me, you didn't like the journey, you didn't like the steps, but you did them. You kicked, screamed, you complained, but you did them. You stayed the course. You got to this season.
Uh-huh.
Now you surrendered to who I wanted you to be.
I
No
wanted you to
longer
be.
trying to be the status quo. No longer trying to fit into the
Mhm.
box. No longer trying to
Mhm.
alter yourself.
Mhm.
Because my issue used to always be like this. I tell them all the time. I'm always transparent. My issue used to always be I had an ancient oil, but nobody around me understood why I was the way I was. I was
Mhm.
always, you too old, you too serious, you too this, you too that. And so I would alter myself.
You will conform.
I would conform and just to
Mhm.
make sure I didn't stand out. But no matter how much, and I'm hoping hoping I'm speaking to somebody, no matter how much I conformed, she, the one I was authentically meant to be, would always keep popping up. Every
Mhm.
time I wanted to conform, I would be in certain situations and she would pop right on up. When I
Mhm.
didn't want to be seen, she would show right on up.
Show
And
up.
no matter how much I tried to conform, so I'm trying to help somebody. You're trying to fit into their box, you're trying to fit into their mold, you're trying to fit into popularity. Guess what? The authentic you, it's time for her to show up. It is time for you to stand up bold, not in your strength, not in what you can do, not in your thoughts and your views,
Mhm.
but really in who he's created you to be. And it's something, Pastor
Yeah.
Tammy, you said, the fruit of the season I despise.
Ugh. That it ends
Listen,
up being my sweetest fruit. It's my
listen.
sweetest fruit.
Oh my
Listen.
God.
Listen.
That whole fruit of the season that I despise. I sit back. Um, I'm releasing my next book next month, called The Repossession of Me.
Oh
And
yes.
the way the
Yes.
Lord literally gave it to me was not from the victim perspective. It was
Mhm.
literally from the appreciation of
Mhm.
taking back all of me that I spread among people.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it was literally taking back. And so when you just said the fruit of the season I despise, I'm looking at this season that I'm now holding the fruit of the
Mhm.
season of the rejection, of the season where I didn't fit, of the season of the abandonment, of the season of the betrayal, of the season of the loneliness where I had to have shut mouth grace while they were doing everything and he wouldn't let me respond. Now
Mhm.
I'm holding that fruit. And
Mhm.
now that fruit, like you said, has become the sweetest fruit
The
of
sweetest
my
fruit
life
of
now.
my life.
And I look back and be like, I hated that
I
part.
hated that.
I hated that.
I hated that. It's the season that we question God. Why are you taking me through this? Why am I? And I'm listening to you talk, and I'm saying, like, if I could just help someone to know
Mm-hmm.
that God is in the details. He's
I
in the
agree.
details. And sometimes the details can be small, but he's in the details,
Mm-hmm.
And if you just trust the journey, and I've been on a journey recently where I promise you, some days I felt like I was crazy. Some days I wonder if I missed it. Some days I'm like, wait a minute, hold up, wait a minute. Now, hold
Mm-hmm.
on. Like, I'm just being honest, right?
Yeah.
You don't always feel like you don't always feel like you're in his will. This is
Mm-hmm.
why we can't fool with these feelings, because these feelings are have us going all over the place in different directions. But it is trusting God, and letting him lead you, and you follow him on the journey, regardless. And sometimes you even feel like you feel like you look crazy, right? But I promise you, if you hang in there, if you hang in there, those that called you crazy will turn around and call you blessed.
Yes.
God's gonna do it. Like if I could just help someone, um, just on the part of being on a journey with God. And it's very important too that we're not looking for anyone to understand the journey. They're not supposed to understand it, right? And if they love you, right, they'll love you whether they understand it or not. They'll cover you whether they understand it or not. And that's why it's important who you are connected to in certain seasons of your life, because everybody cannot handle the journey that God's going to take you on. But when you're with seasoned, mature people, I don't know how I got over there, but when you're with seasoned, mature people, they're so seasoned that some of them will even know when they need to back up.
Yep.
They'll even know, like, oh, this is not my season for me to be walking right that close to her right now, and they're comfortable with it. But gifted people, I feel like gifted people, we just have this thing about us where we just want everybody to understand. And they're
Whew.
never going to understand because we don't look like what we're going through, right? And thank God for grace,
Thank
right?
you.
Thank
Thank
God for
God.
grace.
Yes.
It is definitely the grace of God. But certainly that thorn in our flesh is there, you know.
Yeah. Listen, but that's the thing is we want people to understand. But here's the truth of it. We want them to understand even sometimes when we don't even
Well,
understand.
we don't understand.
So we can't even articulate
Yeah.
where I am, why I am. Like I was talking to some members of my team the other day, and I was just saying, God is doing so much that I want to say, hey, hold up,
Hold
hold up,
up. Hold
hold
up.
up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some things I ain't even pray for. I'm like, God, wait a minute, I ain't asked for that. Oh, wait, wait, wait. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like you said, sometimes I feel like I can't do how am I going to juggle and do all of this? But then it's always like, no, God said, I didn't ask you to understand. I didn't ask you to see. I didn't have ask you
Mm-hmm.
to have all the answers. I
Mm-hmm.
just asked you to submit
To
and do
submit,
what I said.
to
And
surrender.
so and sometimes I'm trying to make people understand, well, God has me doing this because, and never mind. But listen, never mind. I'm just going to do it because I can't find the words to articulate why I'm supposed to do it,
Why?
or to make
Mm-hmm.
you understand why he told me to do this,
Mm-hmm.
or why he told me to preach here, or why he told me to teach here, or why he told me to build this, or
Yeah.
why he told me to do the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like I just know what he said. Like I
Yeah.
don't know why. I don't know why, but
Mm-hmm.
I do know what he said because there was a time where I had to decipher which voice,
Mm-hmm.
whether or not it was my feelings or
Mm-hmm.
God. But now
Yes.
I'm in a season where I'm confident because
Confidence.
of my surrender. I know what I heard him say, and
Mm-hmm.
that's all I can
Mm-hmm.
do. And
Mm-hmm.
so that has now become enough for me. If he said
Mm-hmm.
it, it's now become
That's
enough
enough.
for me.
That's
Does it
enough.
mean that I don't get weary? No. Does it
Mm-hmm.
mean that I don't throw tantrums? No. Does
Mm-hmm.
it mean that I don't want to quit sometime? No. Does it mean that I don't want to turn it all over? No.
No,
All of that still happens,
it
but I
still
still
happens.
always come back to my surrender. My surrender
Yeah.
rings loud in my ear.
Yeah.
You
Mm-hmm.
submitted to this.
Yeah.
You're surrendered to this. You're
Yeah.
sold out to this. My
Mm-hmm.
yes is secure and my yes is eternal.
Yes.
And so as long
Yes.
as he tells me to do it, I'm gonna do it even if I gotta do it by myself.
By yourself. And there will be times when we do have to do it by ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And we got to be confident that, listen, I may not have physical people here with me, but God is with me.
Hmm.
And he's more than enough. I
Yeah.
love pushing that with my mentees. Like, it may feel lonely, but when you get to the place of maturity where you understand that he's with you, then you know he's more than enough. He doesn't, it doesn't compare to what people can do for you, right?
Hmm.
It
Yeah.
doesn't. It really doesn't.
Yeah.
It
Because
doesn't.
because the thing about this is he becomes that bridge that carries me over the shakiness of everything. Like
Yeah.
that's how I always look at it. I look at it like this is me and this is my destiny. And sometimes I got to go over this whole gulf of water that is unstable and all over the place. And because I rest in him, he literally becomes the bridge. I just drive right on over. It doesn't get rid of the trouble. I'm just driving over it.
You're driving over
And
it.
you know, and so that's where I am, is that my whole thought process when it's the whole she is enough and she is me, it's because what he created me to be has now become enough for me.
Yes.
I don't need to become what I think works for other people. I don't
Mm-hmm.
need to become what I think works because I saw somebody do this and they had 500 people come. So now let me alter what I've been doing to go over there and see if it'll work for me. No, that was their grace.
No,
That
that
was
was
their
it.
grace. And
That
I
was
have
it.
to be okay if my enough means I'm only serving 20 people.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do when your enough doesn't match your desire? You wanted to serve 500, but he said, I called you to this community to heal this 20.
Mm-hmm.
Can you still surrender with the same
Can
tenacity?
you still surrender? Can you still? Because the thing is, um, most of the time when we're looking for large capacities, it's really about what people will think and say about us,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so that, to me, that is an indicator to remind you that you've lost focus,
Mm-hmm.
right? You've lost focus, right? And
Yeah.
so and there are times when God had to, like, he had to tap me on the shoulder. Is it really about that, or is it about this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so and I love when God does that, because it means that to me, that's grace. Like, I'm not gonna let you get so far out there that
Yeah.
you shipwreck because you are looking over in someone else's vineyard when I've given you what I've given you, right? And
Yes.
sometimes we get so caught up and so distracted. But if I could just encourage anyone to know, like, God gives all of us a measure.
Mm-hmm.
He gives us a measure, right? And he gives us the grace for that measure.
Yes.
Walk in it, right? Work it. Work what he gave you, right? Because my desire now is just to bring God glory. I want
Yes.
him to be glorified in everything that I do, everything I put my hand to build. I want him to be glorified. I want his mark to be on it. You
Yes.
know, it's like, gone are the days where we're just counting, because I believe we're about to enter into a place where it's gonna be a lot of small groups anyway. I
Mm-hmm.
believe, it's going to go back to the New Testament, when they were going from house to house. Like, I
Yes.
just believe those times are upon us, and then all this stuff it'll just be, we don't have to do all
Mm-hmm.
that stuff no more, right?
Yeah.
It's like staying focused on the vision that God has given you, especially if you are a builder. Is
Yes.
staying focused on what God has given you to build, because when he's given it to you to build, he's giving you the grace to build it. He's
Mm-hmm.
giving you the capacity to carry it. Because the worst thing you could do is put a 2,000-pound building on your back when you only have the strength for a 1,200-pound building on your back. It'll break your back, right?
Mm-hmm.
And most of us are walking around exhausted and tired
Yes.
because we've maxed out our capacity. We're doing things that he did not call us to do, ask us to do, right? Or sanction us to do, right? But we're just doing it. I was talking to my therapist just on yesterday. I actually sent her an email, and I was saying to my therapist, I think I need to sit down and revisit my capacity, because I think I'm losing focus there, because I'm exhausted again. And so those are my indicators. It's important
Mm-hmm.
to have
Yes.
indicators when things happen in your life. Learn from those things, remember those things, and ask God to recall to your mind those things that broke you down one time, and so that you'll know when you get back there. And that's where I was just yesterday. I was
Yeah.
like, I am exhausted. So I'm big on that. Like, I reach out and I'll talk to those people who God has strategically placed in
Yes.
my life to be
Yes.
a voice, right? And in a safe space where I can just open up, be vulnerable, be
Yes.
honest, share who I am, share where I am. And to be honest, that's been a part of my whole journey. Had I not had that space where I could run in and like, listen, this is where I am today. My heart is hurting. I'm feeling confused. I feel lonely. I feel lost. I feel I feel like I'm withdrawn. It is because I had God strategically put
Yes.
a clinician in my life where I am able to relax and just be who I am in that moment. Now, the
Mhm.
next moment, I might be someone else, and I can do that too. But that's why it's important to have those safe spaces,
Yeah,
because it's
absolutely.
a journey, and a journey can sometimes be real tedious and real
Oh,
hard,
yeah.
but it's worth it.
Oh,
But it's
yeah.
worth it.
Definitely
But
worth
it's
it.
worth it.
And so it's like Pastor Tammy said, everything that I do, even with this, even with this space, is to point people back to God.
Yeah.
Even with
Amen.
this space, my goal is still always to point people back to God. My teachings is always to point people back to God. Anything that I do, I want to point them back to God. And so, as we come to these final moments, to that woman that feels like, you feel like you're exhausted, you feel like you're unsure, you feel like you're uncertain, you feel like you're wounded and everything, and you're trying to figure out, how can I feel like I am enough given what I feel. Pastor
Yeah.
Tammy just told you, sometimes you need to curate those safe spaces to properly release. Some of us
Yeah.
are holding on to stuff that we should have released a long time ago. Some of us are
Yes.
carrying stuff through this
Yes.
journey, dragging it from season to season, and we should have let it go years
A
ago.
long time ago.
We're waiting for apologies that will never come.
Never
We're waiting for
come.
explanations and
Mhm.
answers that will never come. We're waiting for people to change that have no desire to.
Mhm.
And so some things you just got to release to God and actually go back to that surrender, release it, and then continue on your journey, because you're stunting your journey by being stuck. So to that
Yeah.
woman that's trying to figure out, I got all these emotions, how can I feel like I am enough? In these last moments, Pastor Tammy, if you would just give them some type of impartation, just to share with them, how do I get back to the place where I can surrender? How do I get back to the place where I can get back to my realignment?
The only way you can get back to your place, your realignment, is to go back to the creator, the one who created you. And it is in him that he is able to give you the identity of who you really are, right?
Mhm.
And we are more than enough because God loves us, right? Our worth is never about us. It's not about our skills. It's not about our knowledge. It's not about how much we can contribute. It's about who God says we are. And we are fearfully and wonderfully made.
Mhm.
My favorite scripture is, my grace is sufficient in him. And when we doubt our worth, we can rest in the knowledge, because there will be days when we do doubt our worth, but we can rest in the knowledge that God uses us even when we feel weak or lack the skills needed. God doesn't ask for perfect people, Dr. Vaughn. He asks for what we have, and he makes that more than enough. So how do you know you have more than enough? Because he gave you exactly what you need, and he take what it may be little to everybody around you and may even be little to you, but he'll take the little bit that he gave
Mhm.
you, and he'll make it, and he'll use it for what he needs to use it for. And that's what makes us more than enough. So if you could create a life where you understand that regardless of what comes and goes, regardless of who comes and goes, regardless of who tries to label me, regardless of who mishandled me, I go back to the one who created me, who says, listen, cast all of your cares on me because I care for you, right? And
Yeah.
I have learned to cast everyone, when I say every care, I cast every care on him, because I need, because if I don't, I'll still be carrying around a whole lot of toxic things of what happened to me,
Yeah.
how that made me feel, how that
Mhm.
made me look. But
Mhm.
no, I choose to release it in God. And the only way you're able to do that is when you know that you are enough, and you don't have to be validated and justified by people.
Nope.
By people. When you walk in the room, know that you belong there. Why? Because I'm there. When you
Yep.
make a decision that this is what I want to do and this is who I am, take your life and lead it in the direction that you want to go, that you want to go. Because one of the things I believe is the scripture, I think it's in Philippians, and it says, for it is God who is effectively at work in us, both to will and to work, right? It's his good pleasure, right?
Mm-hmm.
For him to work in us the will to do. So sometimes those things in us, people may not understand it, but the reason why I'm going in this direction is
Yes.
because it's what he put in me, and I'm working the will of, and it's bringing him good pleasure, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not people, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I would tell anyone under the sound of my voice to just know that you are enough. And when you get to the place where life gets so big that it feels like it's going to suck you out of it, get into your hiding place. And your
Yes.
hiding place is in the will of God, in the presence of God, and in the spirit of God. And make sure that your life is a life of surrenderance. I promise you, it's the most peaceful place in the world. It takes care of our anxiety,
Yes.
depression, stress, all of that,
All
when
of
you're
it.
in the will of God, when you're locked in with God, right? So get in that place and abound there. And I promise you, life will look a whole lot different, and you'll know who you are in him and through him. You are more than enough.
Yes.
If no one has told you today, you are more than enough because of whose you are.
Mm-hmm.
That's what makes you more than enough.
Absolutely. So listen, this has been another episode of the MOY with Dr. Vaughn, the more of you, owning your story with authenticity and boldness. Pastor Tammy, thank you so much for joining us today. Listen, you need to get locked back in the God, submit and surrender, and let
Surrender.
him unfold who you are in him. Ladies, you are enough. So
Not
tonight we wanted to tell you, so declare it to yourself. She is enough
and
and
when
she
she
is
is
me.
enough.
And
In
so listen,
Jesus.
make sure you share this. Somebody else needs to hear this. Somebody else needs to be encouraged. But most of all, stay connected to us. Why? Because we are creating a space that we can
Yes.
have inspiring conversations where
Yes.
we can be
I love it.
empowered to be everything that God has created us to be. So guess what? I'll see you back here next time for the next episode of the Moy with Dr. Bond. But tonight, above all, lock in with God and know that you are more than enough.
More than enough.